Day 2 of section 7.6 is where we're going to graph some of these exponential functions. So here is my equation that's an exponential function. In order to graph it, we're going to go ahead and make a table. So you can go ahead and fill out an XY table and then put in the X column 0, 1, and 2. We're going to use 0, 1, and 2 every time on the X column. So to find the y's, I would just plug in each of these numbers in the x spot into my formula. So I would have 3 times 2 to the 0 power, and then I would just solve it. So this would be just typing it into your calculator. So then I would end up with 3 for my first one. Then I have 3 times 2 to the first because I'm plugging in 1 for the x. So then I would have 6 for my y value. And then I'm plugging in 2 in the x value, so now I would have 12. This then gives you 3 points to plot. So I would plot the points 0, 3, 1, 6, and 2, 12. So over here on your graph, you're going to plot those points. Now, 0, 3, I'm going to start at the origin and I'm going to go 0 left to right, and then I'm going to go up 3. 1, 6 means I go right 1 up 6, and 2, 12 means I'm going to have to go right 2 and then up 12. You might have to extend your y-axis 2 more spots in order to put in that last point. Now you should see somewhat of a curve shape. Make sure when you are drawing in your curve that first off it looks like a curve and not a straight line, so have it going up and then tailing down here. Now notice that I'm putting in this dashed line across this y-axis or this x-axis. I'm putting that in there so that you realize that this is actually called an asymptote, and when you have an exponential function, there's always an asymptote, which means there's always a point that it does not cross. So I want you to understand that even though if you don't draw in this dashed line, make sure that your graph keeps coming down to it, but will never ever touch it or cross it. So I don't want you to ever have your graph that comes clear down here, because that would be incorrect. So make sure that your graph can curve through there and kind of flatten out along it, but it does never cross through it or go over it. Okay? Alright, you're going to pause the video and try the got it question. So in the got it question, you should have made a table with 0, 1, and 2 in the x's, and then you're going to find your y's. So after plugging in your 0 into your function, you should have gotten 0.5. After plugging in 1, you should have gotten 1.5. And after plugging in 2, you should have gotten 4.5. Now you should be plotting these points together. So 0 and 0.5 would be up 0.5 on the y-axis. 1 and 1.5 would be over 1 and up 1.5. 2 and 4.5 would be over 2 and then up 4.5. Then I'm going to draw in my curve and it will flatten along the x-axis but will not cross it. So make sure that your tail on this left side, that will flatten along it, but make sure it does not cross through it, because again that will be incorrect. Okay, so make sure that it flattens along there but does not cross through it. Okay, so that's how you're going to graph those exponential functions. Now let's take a look at how you would solve it. So it's asking you to solve this equation, and to do that we're going to use Desmos to solve it for us. So what we're going to do is you're going to go to this website, Desmos, and you're going to type in, DESMOS if you've never been there, and then you're going to go ahead and hit the start graphing button, and you will type in the two equations. So the first one that I'm going to do is the left side, which is the 2 to the x. So I will type in y equals 2, and then here is your exponent button down here on the a to the b. So I will click that and then I can type in my x, and notice that it will automatically graph it for you. Then you're going to hit enter and you should get on a different row, and you're going to type in the right hand side of your equation. So we will type in y equals 0.5x plus 2. And as soon as I get done graphing it, notice that it will go ahead and as soon as I get done typing it, it will go ahead and graph it. So then your next step is you're going to find the x coordinates of the intersection points. So if you click on those, it should show you where they're at. So notice when I put my cursor over each one, it will show me what those gray points are. Okay, so I'm going to write down the x coordinate, which is 1.445. So I don't use the y coordinate, I'm just using the x. And then I'm going to come down here and you see 2 points that are really close. The -4, 0 is where it crosses the x-axis, so I don't want that point. I want this point where they're crossing through. So I have the x coordinate, which is the -3.863, so that will be my x coordinate that I would use. So you're going to use Desmos to graph it, so you'll need your laptop, and then you're just writing down the x coordinates, just the first number, so don't write the whole thing. Alright, so now you're going to come back over here and you're going to solve the two got it questions by yourself. Okay, so back over here we have, if I'm going to do the first problem, I'm going to type in y equals 0.3 to the x power, and then I should get that graph. And then on the other one, I'm just going to type in y equals 5. So remember, you're typing in both sides as an equation. Then I'm finding the intersection point, so I just put my cursor over where they intersect at, and you should be getting -1.337. Okay? So that should be your first answer for letter A. Now I'm going to come back and do the second equation. So I'm going to type in y equals 1.25 to the x power. And then for the other one, I'm going to type in y equals -2x. And put my cursor over where they intersect, and so I should be getting -0.452. So then your two answers that you should be getting are those two. So if you still have questions about how to graph them manually or how to put them into Desmos, let one of the teachers know so that we can help you, so that you know how to do these by yourself.